This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy, and you're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. Our guest today is Danny Kofke, author of A Simple Book of Financial Wisdom. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Hey, Bob. Thanks so much for having me on.
So I want to give everybody some background on Danny. He is a personal finance author from Atlanta, Georgia, and after being an elementary school and special education teacher for 14 years, he recently left the classroom to join I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, and to do what he loves, helping others manage their money better. He has appeared on numerous television shows, including Fox and Friends, Fox News Channel's Happening Now, the CBS Early Show, CNN's Newsroom, HLN's Weekend Express, The 700 Club, The Clark Howard Show, and MSNBC Live, plus over 550 radio shows. I think we're the last one. He's been on all the rest, Bob, except for ours.
Now on Get Real, too.
Yes.
I mean,
So now you've got them all covered. So
there you go.
As I mentioned, he wrote the book, A Simple Book of Financial Wisdom, and you can check them out at dollarswithdanny.com. So we have some questions for you, Danny.
Sure.
Okay, first, many people struggle with managing their money well. What is the first step someone can take to gain control over their finances?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to set goals. And that's the thing. If you aim for nothing, you'll hit it every time. So when I talk to people and counsel them, have no idea what they want their futures to look like, what they're planning for. They have no goals in place. So I think that's something that we sit down first and foremost and we figure out, okay, what exactly do you want to achieve in your life? Because that makes it a lot easier when you're working towards something. It makes it a lot easier to say no today because you have an end result in mind. And, you know, Madison Avenue spends billions of dollars to get our money, and it's easy to spend it. The temptations are there. So if you don't have something that you're working towards, then it becomes so easy that when you see the next latest, greatest thing, that you buy it because you're not working towards something. So that, to me, is the number one thing to start with, is to have some goals in mind and then have some plans so you can achieve those goals.
Yes, so I would say we see it in real estate and mortgages as well, but it seems like so many people spend way more than they earn. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's definite. I mean, that's why, you know, we're in trouble. There was a recent study, 66 million Americans have nothing in a savings account. Nothing. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it's a huge, huge problem. And I think, you know, a lot of times that stems from there is some sort of lack of contentment in many people's lives. And, you know, money problems, I believe, are about 90% based on behavior and emotion. We can do the math. We know it's not wise to use credit cards, go into debt, but yet there is some area in our lives that we're lacking, and we buy something to mask that unhappiness. And it works, but for a little bit, and then it goes away. You know, if I go out and buy a brand new shirt, the first 4 or 5 times I wear it, it feels good, but after a while, that feeling goes away. I mean, in our country, we have a new car fragrance. We can spray it in our car to make it, you know, smell like it's new again. So that's the thing that I think where a lot of people get into trouble is there is something that they're trying to mask. So they go out and they buy something, and it's very similar. You know, if we go by our favorite fast food restaurant, order the number 2 and supersize it, it feels good. We're feeling a need at that point, but then an hour later, you know, the meal, it sits a little heavy and it doesn't feel as good anymore. And I think the same thing holds true when we swipe that piece of plastic through a machine, knowing that we don't have the money to pay for it. At the moment it feels good, but then after a while we have buyer's remorse, and it doesn't feel so good anymore.
And isn't there a stat that came out recently, something about 60 or 70% of people couldn't come up with $1,000 to make an urgent repair, or if an emergency came up?
Yeah, actually it was like $500. It was something crazy like that. Yeah, like an unexpected, you know, crazy hospital visit, an emergency, whatever. And that's the thing, you know, when I counsel people, I mean, you hear people sometimes will say, gosh, you know, I just have such bad luck, and it's life always throws curveballs at me. The thing about it is, if you live in a house long enough, something's going to need to be repaired. If you drive a car long enough, it's going to break. Something's going to break in it. If you have kids, I mean, they're going to break something, either an object or a part on their body. It's called life. It happens to all of us. We just have to prepare for it. And I'm currently in a season of, it's huge outgo. In April, my oldest daughter, Ava, was doing some gymnastics routine. She slipped and fell, hurt her neck, had to take her to the ER. Thank God nothing was wrong. Even though we have good health insurance, the bills started coming in, and they weren't pretty. We paid those bills, and then literally 4 days later, and I mentioned it before, our AC went out in the house, and it's really, really hot down here in Georgia this summer. So a couple weeks ago, we had to get a whole new AC unit. And then shortly after that, took one of the cars in, and it needed new brakes. It's called life, but that's the thing about having an emergency fund savings account in place is we have to anticipate those things. They are going to happen. So we need to just set aside money to prepare for them, and that way when they do, it's no fun, and I didn't like paying for it, but I didn't have to use a credit card and go into debt to do it because we were prepared for it.
So for people listening that have a lot of debt and no savings, what should they do first? Should they start paying down the debt, or should they start saving first?
I believe we need to have 1 month worth of expenses in place before we start getting crazy with the debt. And I know that doesn't sound exciting. And, credit card industries are great. They'll call us, they'll harass us, and that's why people, they think, I got to get rid of these credit cards because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But I feel you have to have some financial margin in place before you begin doing that. Because let's just say you're doing a great job. You decide, I'm just going to start paying off this debt, and you don't build your savings up. And you're doing great. You may go for a year, and it's going along, but then you go out one morning and the car won't start. You have no margin in place, so what's going to happen? You're going to have to whip out that piece of plastic again, swipe it through the machine, and then once again, many money problems are behavioral-based. So then we do that, and we feel, gosh, I knew I couldn't do this. I'm always going to be behind. And then many people just wave the white flag, they give up, and that's it. Having margin in place allows for things like that to happen. So if you build up your emergency fund to at least 1 month of expenses to start with, something minor happens. Something goes wrong with the car, you have a doctor bill, whatever, you have cash in place to take care of it, and you don't have to put it on a credit card and go further in debt. So I recommend you build up that emergency fund savings account to 1 month of expenses, then we start tackling the debt.
Wow. Now, I was reading a stat with some of the information you had sent over, which said that there are reports and studies which say that millennials are doing a better job at managing their money than their parents did, which sounds shocking to me. Do you think that's the case?
I do. And here's the thing. Millennials, a lot of times, they're of the age where when we had the last crisis, when back in 2008, 2009, they were old enough at that point to kind of see some of the struggles their parents went through. Mm-hmm. And, with that generation, it was buying the McMansions, qualifying for however much you can afford on a house and doing it no matter if you truly could afford it or not. So I think millennials were old enough to understand, and they got to witness firsthand some of the struggles that their parents were facing. And, we were told all along, live in the American dream. You have all these things, and yet behind closed doors, it was somewhat of a nightmare for a lot of people. So I think millennials grew up with that, and they saw that, and they thought, we've been kind of fed a lot of false things, that life, it isn't about that. They saw real life struggles. So, yeah, there are reports out there that show that they actually do a better job of saving. And I will say, too, for many millennials, I know the student loan crisis has kind of forced many of them to scale back, too, because that debt is so much that they have to pay that in other avenues of life that they're being a little more careful because they are already starting off their working careers with a lot of debt on the plate. So they got to be really, really careful and not accumulate a bunch more since they have to take care of those student loans.
And we see that a lot, too, when people are trying to finance houses. And, there are some people coming out of college, especially ones that went for, beyond 4 years, that have mortgage payments for student loans. It's pretty common to see over $1,000 up to $2,000 a month going to student debt.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, the thing is with student loan debt, you can't get rid of it. Even if you file bankruptcy, it's still there. So I think, it's one of those things that it's unfortunate that a lot of people are faced with that. But I think, they're being smart about it by not accumulating more debt to go on top of it.
It's interesting. So I'm going to share two different things. First of all, I'm a terrible saver. because I love shoes. So so I buy a lot of shoes. And
I've been told you can't ever have enough purses or shoes.
Yes.
I think you can, but my wife says otherwise.
if you could retire with shoes as money, I'd be all set. Like
They don't gain value over time?
I like to think they do. But I'll say two different things have helped me over the last 20 years. Number one, many years ago, I read The Automatic Millionaire, like basically just setting it up so that money is taken out automatically from an account or from a paycheck every month that you just don't touch, having it go into a stock account. So I started that years and years ago, and I don't even know how to get money out of the account that it goes into. So I actually have savings now because it's just a pain for me to figure out how to get the money out of it. That's number one. And number two, I had read a book a long time ago, and it really made me think differently about debt. And what it made me realize is that anytime I buy anything, like a car or a house, that debt is you trading time. So if I want to take on debt for something, I have to look at it as indentured debt, meaning if I take that debt on, I am going to have to put more hours in at work in order to pay for it, which means less free time. So what are your thoughts on both of those items?
Yeah, first and foremost, yes, the Automatic Millionaire, David Bacco, is a great book, and you're so correct. Setting yourself up for automatic payments is a key. And I know many retirement plans now at work, they're actually doing auto-enroll into the 401k or 403b, depending on what industry you're in. So you have to opt out because many of us follow the path of least resistance. So now for you, since it is set up automatically, it would be more difficult for you actually to stop saving money every month because you would have to do something to stop it. So that's a great idea to do, and that's what we started off, Tracy and I did when we got married. We made it automatic. So right when we got paid every month, money was automatically taken out of our checks before we had a chance to see it, spend it, touch it, get used to it, and it was invested. And in that way, in your case, you can buy as many shoes as you want, but you're still saving money for your future because it is taken out before you have a chance to spend it. So yes, making automation is a great way to save money because you're tricking yourself. And many of us spend up to how much we earn, if not more. So doing that before you have a chance to do that takes that part out of it. So yes, I think that's a wonderful idea. And then also debt. You're right. I mean, you're basically spending future money today when you go into debt because you don't have it. And, whether you're, no matter if you're spiritual or not, in the book of Proverbs 22:7 says the borrower is servant to the lender. So that was written, you think, over 2,000 years ago by Solomon, who was one of the richest and wisest men ever to walk the face of the earth. It was written before Walmarts, before credit cards, before anything. But it's so true that, you're servant to a lender. When you borrow money from someone, you owe it to them, and it changes the dynamics of any relationship. I mean, if it's even a family member, then anytime you have dinner with them, you may have, if you owe them money, you may be watching football on that nice TV, and, you have guilt because you're thinking, oh, they know that I owe them money, but yet I went out and bought this TV, and they may not even be thinking it, but it changes the complete dynamics. So, yes, once you go into debt, it's a struggle. And if you go into credit card debt, add the interest on top of it, 24% interest that you're paying on it, and it can take so long to climb out of it. So, yes, I agree 100% that we have to make it automatic when saving, but also at all costs we need to avoid debt. And there is some good debt. I mean, I'm not going to say that, for many of us buying a home, we need a mortgage because we don't have that money sitting aside. And for many people going to college, they do use student loans. We have to use them wisely and try to graduate in 4 years so we don't take long. But especially with the credit card debt and payday loans and things like that, that's why it's really important to try to save up and have emergency fund, have financial margin in place so we don't have to use those vehicles.
Okay. So we have a couple of minutes left. By the way, for anybody that just tuned in, we're listening to Danny Kofke. He wrote the book, A Simple Book of Financial Wisdom. You can follow him on his website. It is dollarswithdanny.com. So in the last couple of minutes, what is the most important message you hope that others get from you and what you teach?
I want others to just realize that they can do it. I want them to have hope from it. I'm a former school teacher, so I taught school for 14 years. Never took a personal finance class in my entire life, but yet we were able to figure it out. My wife, Tracy, stayed at home for 8 years to raise our 2 daughters, lived on my teacher's salary of about $42,000 a year. Despite that, we have no debt except our mortgage, invest each month, have an emergency fund in place. But most importantly, we live wealthy lives on less. And what I want to show people, is that if this former school teacher can do it, they can do it too. And yes, it takes sacrifice. Yes, there's going to take some discipline involved in it, but you can do it. You can absolutely do it. And that's kind of what I want to show others.
That's great. That's great advice.
Awesome stuff. So Danny Kofke, dollarswithdanny.com, for anybody looking for tips on how to build a better future by managing debt, creating savings account, etc. So thank you for joining us today, Danny.
Hey, thank you so much, Bob and Stacy, for having me on. I enjoyed it.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.